Every headline. Every rumor. Every so-called truth about Johnny Depp. For years, it felt like his life wasn't his own anymore. It was being told, rewritten, and reshaped by everyone except him. Newspapers, magazines, blogs, and social media all decided who Johnny Depp was supposed to be. And here's the crazy part, millions of people believed it without ever stopping to ask, is this really true? Think about it. How many times have you scrolled through your feed, seen some dramatic headline about Johnny, and thought, wait, did that really happen? Maybe it was shocking. Maybe it was heartbreaking. Maybe it was so wild it almost sounded like a movie script. But was it real? How much of it ever actually came from Johnny himself? If we're honest, very little. Because here's the truth, most of those headlines were built to sell a story, not tell the truth. Imagine living like that. Imagine waking up in the morning, pouring your coffee, and seeing your name plastered across the internet with accusations, rumors, and lies that you didn't even recognize. Imagine reading about your life, only to think, who are they even talking about? That's not me. That has been Johnny's reality for years. That constant swirl of noise, drowning out his real voice. But when we strip all that away, when we take out the gossip and the sensationalism, what's left is Johnny's truth. And that's what matters. The truth isn't flashy. It isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, tucked away in the corners of someone's actions. But it's there. And with Johnny, his truth is in the things that rarely get talked about. It's in his art, in his music, in the way he interacts with people when the cameras aren't rolling. It's in the resilience he's shown when everything around him seemed to be falling apart. So let's walk through this. Step by step. Not the headlines. Not the clickbait. But Johnny's real story. First, we have to separate fact from fiction. That's the hardest part. Because rumors, as they say, travel faster than the truth. And for someone like Johnny, whose fame skyrocketed decades ago, those rumors have followed him every single step of the way. There's a saying in Hollywood, when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And sadly, that's often what happens. The legend, the story, the scandal, it takes on a life of its own. People repeat it enough times, and suddenly, it becomes true in the public's eyes, even when it's not. Johnny himself has said it before. He's admitted that he sometimes reads things about himself that don't even sound familiar to him. Imagine that, reading about your supposed actions, your supposed words, and realizing none of it actually happened. Imagine how confusing that must feel. How frustrating. It's like watching your reflection in a broken mirror, distorted, twisted, unrecognizable. And yet, the world stares at that broken reflection and insists that it's who you are. That's been Johnny's life. But here's the thing. Johnny Depp is not the headlines. He's not the broken reflection that gossip paints. He's a man with passions, with struggles, with stories, just like any of us. The difference is, his life has been lived under a magnifying glass for the whole world to see. Now, we all know him as the larger-than-life characters he's brought to the screen. Captain Jack Sparrow, Edward Scissorhands, Willy Wonka, the Mad Hatter, roles that have become cultural icons. Those characters are unforgettable, and they've made generations of people laugh, cry, and dream. But when the cameras stop rolling, when the costumes come off, Johnny is something else entirely. Away from the spotlight, Johnny is a musician. He's a painter. He's someone who finds peace in creating art that isn't about fame or money, but about expression. He's a father who values time with his kids, a friend who values loyalty, a man who enjoys quiet over chaos. But here's the thing, the media rarely tells you that side of him. Because kindness, painting, and family dinners don't sell magazines. They don't get clicks. What sells is scandal. What spreads is drama. But if you really want to understand Johnny, you have to look at the side of him that doesn't make the headlines. Now let's talk about the struggles. Johnny's journey hasn't been easy. In fact, it's been brutally hard at times. Courtroom battles. Media storms. Personal heartbreak. Losing roles. Losing trust. Being judged not by his work, but by the stories written about him. For years, it felt like he couldn't escape it. And yet, through all of it, he's found a way to pick himself up. Time and time again, when it seemed like he was down for good, he got back up. That kind of resilience doesn't happen by accident. It comes from strength, from belief, and from refusing to let the world define who you are. That, right there, is his truth. Of course, with Johnny, myths and rumors have always followed him. So let's bust a couple of them. One of the biggest myths you've probably heard is that Johnny is difficult to work with. The narrative goes that he's unpredictable on set, that he's hard to direct, that he causes problems. But when you actually listen to the people who have worked with him, actors, directors, crew members, you hear a completely different story. They talk about a man who's generous, who's funny, who treats people with respect. They talk about how he brings energy and joy to the set, how he makes people laugh, how he supports his co-stars. That doesn't sound like difficult, does it? Here's another myth: his career is over. The media loves to throw that one around. Johnny Depp is finished. His time is up. But let's look at reality. He's still acting. He's still performing. He's still creating music. He's still painting. He's still filling theaters and concert halls with fans who love him. Does that sound like someone whose career is over? Of course not. That's just another myth. The truth is, Johnny is still here. Still working. Still surprising us in ways only he can. And here's something most people don't realize. If you really want to know what's true about Johnny, don't waste time chasing every headline. Look at the patterns. Rumors come and go. One day he's the villain, the next day he's the hero, and the cycle repeats. But the patterns, the things that remain steady, those tell the real story. Look at the art he creates. Look at the roles he pours his soul into. Look at the way he treats fans. That's where the truth is. Because here's something you won't often hear in gossip columns. Johnny Depp has always put his fans first. Always. While the media was busy ripping him apart, he was busy dressing up as Captain Jack Sparrow to visit children's hospitals. Imagine that, kids battling illnesses, feeling scared or tired, and suddenly, in walks Captain Jack Sparrow himself. Not Johnny Depp the actor. Not Johnny Depp the tabloid figure. But Jack Sparrow, in full costume, cracking jokes, making them laugh, giving them a piece of magic to hold on to. Do you think those kids cared about rumors? Do you think they cared about what the media said? No. All they saw was someone who cared enough to show up for them. That's truth. And it's not just hospitals. He's been spotted countless times playing guitar with local bands, jamming with musicians who never thought they'd get to share a stage with him. He's stayed after concerts, signing autographs, taking photos, and talking to fans long after security said it was time to go. Because to him, those moments matter. To him, connecting with people matters more than headlines. That isn't rumor. That isn't gossip. That's who Johnny really is. Now, let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw those stories front and center in the media? Almost never, right? Because generosity doesn't sell. Kindness doesn't grab attention the way scandal does. But just because it's not splashed across the headlines doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means we have to look deeper to see it. And when you really look, Johnny's truth becomes clear. He's a man who refuses to be defined by the lies. He's someone who continues to create, to connect, to rise above the chaos. He's someone who has shown us time and again that the real story isn't in the gossip. It's in the art. It's in the music. It's in the laughter of a child who just met their hero in a pirate costume. That's Johnny's truth. So now it's your turn. What's one rumor you've heard about Johnny that turned out to be false? Think about it. We've all heard them. Some were ridiculous. Some were cruel. Some were so exaggerated they almost sounded like parodies. But once you learned the truth, didn't it change how you saw him? Share your experience in the comments. Let's see how many myths we can bust together. And if you want to go even deeper, if you want to keep uncovering the real stories behind the Hollywood noise, stick around. Watch the next video on this channel, because we're diving even further into the truth. More stories, more moments, more reality, things the headlines will never show you. Before you go, if you believe Johnny's truth deserves to be heard, if you think it's time to stop the rumors and focus on what's real, hit that like button. Subscribe so you never miss the stories that cut through the gossip. Because here, it's not about the noise. It's about the truth. And Johnny's truth? Well, it's just getting started.